Okay, hello there, traders. Hello there, traders. Welcome to TOGS Trading Podcast at number 48. Ladies and gentlemen, it's all about boredom, excitement, and the trader's mindset today. Trading isn't always thrilling. In fact, the reality is that good trading is often very boring. But boredom and the search for excitement are two of the most dangerous forces in a trader's mindset. So in this episode, we explore how to recognize those emotions and how to manage them before they sabotage your trading and your edge. As always, okay, I'm joined in my quest today by Big Ian in Dublin.
Hello.
Looking good, Billy Ray. How are you
Thank
doing?
you very much. I'm fine. Thank you very much. Just sitting here waiting to get ready for the afternoon, which I'm kind of looking forward to actually today. For some strange reason. I don't know why, because yesterday was not,
You're
in fact, the last week has not been, well, it's been okay actually. But what I did do this week, which was different, is I dropped my position size for a couple of days. And there was a reason behind that because I was thinking that there's like everybody makes little mistakes in their trading. And an awful lot of the time, I think that an awful lot of those mistakes are just subconscious. 95% of what you do is subconscious, of your actions are subconscious. And so I dropped down my position size just as an experiment, really, for a couple of days, just to see if I would do the same subconscious, have the same reactions to things. And I did, which was very interesting. And then I had another one, another reaction which I wasn't expecting, which is I went a bit wild and did a load of silly trades, which was actually great fun. I really, because it's a long time now since I've sat down and actually done, just done trades that just amused me really for a certain extent. And so I found it really quite good. So that was probably one of the biggest things. That was the biggest thing for me this week. And then
enough.
on top of that, then yesterday I wasn't expecting that sell off. I had a higher target up at 72,
Yeah.
776, 772. And I thought we'd go back up there and then we'd make a decision about whether to go up and down. So I wasn't expecting yesterday's one. So that was yesterday was quite like it started off going nowhere. I actually got a couple of longs
Oh, yeah.
in very support areas. But at the end of the day, I ended up 3.5 down, 3.5 points down, which is nothing. It's 3.5 points. It's a scalp. So it was, but it was just simply I wasn't expecting that action to happen. I expected it to go up another 20 points, and I was trying to capture that 20 points. And that's what you do a lot of the time. Like you pick a direction, and you have to sort of, that's your plan, and then you have to stick to that plan until that plan is proved
Well,
wrong.
3-4 points for a possible 20 risk. It's a fair trade, that isn't it?
Oh yeah,
If
yeah,
it opens your context and patterns, etc. But
yeah.
just on that, just to make a note for people. So as you're talking about position size and risk management,
Mm.
next week's podcast, TOGS 49, that veers into sort of position sizing and risk management. And what we'll be looking at is when to go big. Should you ever go all in on a trade? Okay, so that'll be next week's podcast. There'll be plenty for us to talk about
Mm.
as
Mm.
always. So listen, as always, people, for watching this, listening to this, thanks very much for your comments and your likes and your questions and points, please. As always, we ask you to subscribe and join us, but we really do appreciate it. But let us focus on today's session, TOGS 48, boredom, excitement, and the trader's mindset. Okay, so I suppose a good place to start in is what do you make of the dangers of boredom in trading? Is that something you've had to deal with?
I think everybody's had to deal with boredom at some stage, but I
Oh
have to
yeah,
say the first thing I have to say about boredom is that boredom is a goal, and I think it is probably one of the great goals of
mm,
trading because if you're
interesting.
if you're bored and you sit in front of a screen, you're not stressed. That's what you
Fair
want at
point.
the end of
Fair
in your
point.
it's no anxiety. So you're trading in quite a good environment in that you just don't have anything to do. And I think that and that happens at the beginning of trading. And I think in some ways it's a bit of a childish emotion, because what do you expect? The markets are there to entertain you. You're at work to be entertained. Um, it's a danger. The biggest danger of boredom is that you're in an area where you can self sabotage. Because
Yeah.
there are two types of boredom. There's just boredom and there's frustration. And frustration is a demand.
Good point.
Um, that you should do something. You're frustrated, you're not making any money, you're whatever it is. And then frustration is by knowing that you're bored. Yeah, pick between bored and frustrated, which are generally often occur at the same time. And you have to realize then that you're vulnerable to making a mistake. The next thing that you'd have to ask yourself: are you trading a system that's too slow for you? Because the speed of your system is actually really quite like, how many times does it throw up trades?
Yep.
It's like, are you the type of person who likes to be a fast trader? I like it. I like to scalp. I don't have the patience for swing trading. I don't have that sort of mentality for it. So I need to run a high frequency system, and that suits me down to the ground. So it's a thing to look at.
If you don't mind, let's just clarify that for kind of new people
Right.
listen. When you say high frequency, that doesn't mean that you're using some sort of algo to do your
No,
trading.
no, 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 no,
It's a
no.
higher frequency
Yeah,
of your edge showing up in the
yeah,
market that you trade.
yeah.
That's just help
Basically,
to
so I could
clarify.
do 5 trades an hour, at times. Easily could do 5 trades an hour at times. That'd be about as fast as it would get. So you're doing a trade about every. You can be, depending on the action, be doing a trade every 12 minutes. Generally, it's not quite as quick as that, but you know you could be doing quite a lot, except for certain setups. Some double bottoms you're not going to be doing. You're not going to be in them for that long. Or say you're going to be in them for quite a while. Bottom of ranges, you could be in them for quite a while. I was in a trade overnight there recently, just because it happened to be in the right. It was the right setup, and so I just let it run because I knew it had a much higher target, and there was no sense in me screwing around with it. Um, are you viewing trading in the wrong way? Because if you're bored, and you're successful, you're making money at it, you have a job that you're not that stressed at. Is it not that the dream to a certain extent, to be able to go to a job, not be stressed, and make money? It's so I think part of it might be that people are just viewing it in the wrong way. Um, Crucially, are you watching enough World War II documentaries?
Can you ever watch? Can you ever watch too many World War
Yeah,
II documentaries, Ian?
it's amazing. I know the words to Erica. Oh, the hide of
Yeah, right. Let's let's not
yeah,
let's not take another one of your
yeah,
your lurches. We'll
yeah,
save that for a different
yeah.
podcast, Ian.
Well, it's generally a thing, because I mean the thing is, if you know your setups and you know what you're doing, you just watch a World War II documentary on YouTube while you're waiting. I mean, you put in your setup, sorry, you put in your stop, and your target is whatever 10 points over that or whatever, and there's nothing to do. I mean, this is the whole thing with trading, is that you're not paid for time, you're paid for risk. It's like going to a horse race and you put on a bet on a horse. You're not paid to watch the race.
Yeah,
So I think that's just watch more YouTube if that's what suits you. And that's another thing I think with things is, are people putting too much time into trading?
yeah,
There's a lot of, if you're sitting glued to the screen, just afraid to go to the toilet, or do anything, and having to be on all the time, then you're doing something wrong. The trading doesn't
yeah,
demand that. You know what your setup. That implies that you don't have a setup that you're reacting to the market. So a setup, basically, you would have an area where you expect something to happen. So you're waiting for price to come to that area. And you might have to keep an eye out to make sure that you're there for when price comes to that area. But that's basically it. You don't have to watch every tick.
yeah.
Um, so it's quite
Usually, I was just going to say, usually for new traders, watching every tick just generally tends to lead you to sort of
yeah,
impulsive knee-jerk behavior, a
yeah,
reaction to every single candle or every single tick. So, you are normally better to sort of fire and forget and move on. But anyway, we'll come back
yeah,
to that.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of things, but I really think, just to shorten it, I think that being bored is something that you should make a goal, because it means that gives you a huge amount of information. It means that you're operating properly in a non-stressed. If you're successful, you're operating in a non-stressed environment, and that's really that's really the best place you can possibly be. And the other thing too is that some days are just boring. Some days there's just nothing happening, and that's the market's choice. It's not your choice. You don't get to dictate what happens in the market, and you don't get to do frustration trades and force a trade just because the market has decided that it's not moving today for whatever reason. And if it's a real problem for you, you can look at several instruments and move from instrument to instrument or something. But what you do not get to, some days are just boring, and you do not get to decide what days are boring or what days aren't. So
No, that's very true.
yeah. So that's basically my thoughts on boredom.
Yeah. You make a couple of good points there. Of course, you make a couple of good points, stuff. But interestingly, when you talk about boredom and frustration, I would probably have a differentiator in it, as in boredom is quite internally driven for me. All right. So me and from my experience of like coaching people, is the boredom is quite internally driven. And I think that you're absolutely right. If you are bored, it is probably a sign that you're doing things right, that actually you are on the cusp of doing things well. Whereas frustration, and I can talk about this from a personal perspective and also from working with and coaching traders and stuff. Very often the frustration comes from external drivers. So frustration is, as you say, there's a session, it's dull, it's boring, and you're frustrated because you want to get on, you want to take trades, you want to generate profits, revenue, your business, you want to basically push your equity curve in the right direction. And very often that is coming from external drivers. Maybe you've taken a sabbatical from work and you're pushing it. Maybe you are, you're at the end of your capital and your emotional tether. Maybe you've set yourself some sort of arbitrary external goal, as in I am going to be a profitable trader by the end of, I don't know, Q3 of this year, etc. and stuff. And so all those external drivers, which the market doesn't know about, market does not care about, leads to frustration, and that that weighs heavily upon people, and then that basically starts to get people making sort of knee-jerk impulsive, because they are projecting their expectations, they're projecting their needs and wants onto the market rather than actually getting in line with the market and actually working with the market rather than trying to fight it, etc. I know for myself, I would have elements of frustration where there's not much happening, but really I would find frustration as in I kind of either I've missed the setup, like I was talking about yesterday morning on sterling. All right, I had some great sterling setups, but it was just in front of CPI data, and I don't trade into news and stuff, and so I'd sit and watch there, and then basically it went as I thought and it collapsed. No chance to get in afterwards. And so you're frustrated, all right, or you're frustrated because that basically there's a trade there, okay, or you've missed it for one other reason. So I know in my early days what I used to do to manage frustration was basically in my other room, in the other room in the house I was at that time. I would have a separate computer, and I would have like a computer game on there. Command and Conquer, 0 Hours Generals. Trust me, great game, fabulous game. Just go in there and basically channel my frustration into 45 minutes of just basically delivering organized violence via the medium of a computer game to just basically get it out of my system, which kind of leads into that kind of need for excitement, okay, that need to feel like doing something, because you said like watching a YouTube, that's fine, but I'd find that a bit passive. There's a time and a place where actually I need to be doing something, and actually just going and playing a computer game for 40 minutes and just let the red mist descend there, get it out of the system, just basically, and then actually, if it's viable, return back to my trading desk in a more, let's say, calm and measured and centered mode is what helped me. All right, helped me a great deal. And so, as I'd say, part of that is about understanding the difference between boredom and frustration. And a lot of that boredom, some of that boredom, it does lead to over trading. All right, it leads to over trading, whether it be through frustration because you're driving, or you sit in front of the screen long enough. It will offer. all manner of opportunities. Whether they are the right opportunities for you or whether they're even proper good opportunities is normally debatable. And normally in the debrief afterwards, when you look at the charts again, you realise actually it was a half-arsed, opportunity as opposed to anything particularly sort of really viable in line with your particularly good setups. I'm trying to think what else is kind of in terms of one, forcing the action, forcing the action, and I've been guilty of that in the past. Even if it's not just because of the external drivers, you're forcing the action because you want to do something. All right, you want to do something. You want to sitting on your hands, having no position is actually good trading. But at the start of your create, it doesn't feel like it. You don't get a sense of it. You're thinking, well, I can't be a trader if I've not taken trades. I can't be a trader if I'm not putting positions on. I can't be a trader if I'm, not, engaging with markets and stuff. And it takes a fair bit of time to realize that being flat is a position. That actually sometimes the most profitable thing you can do is go and sit in your hands or go and do something in the room next door to basically take yourself out of the space of where you could do something a bit sort of foolish, a bit immature, impulsive that rarely ends well, does it? When you're coming from that space.
No, there's a couple of things that just hit me with what you were saying there. One is that when people come into trading first, they usually have a false idea of what they're thinking as employees. They think that they're selling time they're exchanging their time for their money, and that's not what it is. It's not a time money exchange. And when you're at work, basically coming to trading is one of the few times in your life that you don't have a teacher, your parents, a teacher, or an employer organizing your time. You have to organize your own time. And I think that people find that quite difficult, and they can get, they can get quite frustrated through having to make that change from employee to basically self-employed, unless of course you work for prop house, but generally it's kind of the same thing. I tend to be, if I'm going to get frustrated, I tend to be frustrated by myself rather than the market, because at this stage, the market's the boss and it's doing what it wants to do, and I can't do anything about it, and also because of the speed and the amount of trades that I do during a day, they come quite quickly. So I don't, there's always I can make up for frustration. If I've screwed up one trade, I don't have to wait that long for another trade to basically pop up. I mean, some of them, they're not all the same quality trades though.
Mm-hmm.
So this morning I came in here, whatever, 9:05 or something like that. I can't remember whatever time, and switched on the computer. I was a little bit late into work. And a really good quality trade had taken off. And it was 15 minutes into the trade. So it was 3 5-minute bars, and I have no way I'm touching 3 5-minute bar. 3 5-minute green bars. There's no way I'm going to enter long after 3 5-minute green bars. Although I had a good idea it was going to go up 10 more points or seven more points. And it did. Just frustrating. But I have now the whole afternoon to make up for that. But all the time I tend to be very much, if I'm going to be frustrated about something, I'm going to be frustrated by me, because it's a performance business, and it's my performance that's off. The market is the market. There's no sense in being angry with it. It's going to do what it's going to do, and it annoys me sometimes when I hear traders complain about, oh, the market was this, the market was that. If only it had done this, or only it had done that. But it's your performance. You're responsible at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So you are. So just moving on, I suppose, to excitement. What I'd written down for this: excitement is a high, and after all highs come lows. And I think that's one of the worst things with, you get hugely excited by trading sometimes, especially when you're starting off, you can get hugely excited by trading. And it's because excitement is a sense of power in a way, and it makes you feel powerful. It makes you feel special. It's quite addictive. It's future-based, because most excitement in trading is I am excited because in the future, my future is going to be like this. You're kind of, it's living in a future that doesn't exist yet. It's because it's addictive, and I do believe it's addictive. people will do things to create excitement. You know, you have all these people doing base jumpers and all this kind of stuff. But that's one part of it. Or you have an awful lot of people in society go and they come into trading, they get tremendously excited about it for 6 months perhaps, and then they run away from trading, and then they go and then they're excited about starting some other business, you know, or whatever they're doing. And I think that what they're doing is that they're just creating excitement for themselves because it's addictive. It makes them feel powerful. It makes them, you know, it makes you feel that your future is bright, and you know it's and I think that people will do things to create that excitement.
Yeah.
It creates overconfidence, I think, in traders as well, you know, because you're excited. If you're excited, you're generally excited for a reason, which means you probably had some recent success. And instead of them realizing that it's that success in trading is success in process, success in trading, because if you do your process right, it puts you in the right place. The market then decides what you're going to get paid. There's no, you know, some days you just hit it right. The market decides to explode, and you walk away with a big happy smile on your face. But it isn't you. You haven't, you know, you have done exactly the same day as the day you get stopped out 3 times. You know, it's you should be excited about your process, not about your profit, really. It creates emotional vulnerability, excitement, because what it does is that you want to maintain that excitement. Because now, for the first time in your life, you feel, or maybe not the first time in your life, but for one of the times of your life, you feel special. You know, you're a special little boy, and Christmas is coming, basically. And so, what's that gets taken away? You know, the next trade, it can make you gun shy. It can do all sorts of things because the next trade is going to could change your whole perception of yourself.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Excitement is temporary.
Yeah.
And because the thing is, you can't be excited. I was watching a Genghis Khan documentary on my good old YouTube documentary watching days.
Of course you were.
And I was going, that man's not going to get excited by going on a date, is he? Considering he's responsible for 5% of the world's DNA or whatever. Like,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
you know, if you've done something 10,000 times, you're not going to be excited by it on 10,001. So it's going to go away. Excitement is going to disappear. It's an extreme emotion as well, and so because it's an extreme emotion, you're just not designed to continue extreme emotions, especially strong. Like, you can only be angry for a certain length of time. You know, because you just physically can't do it. You know, eventually you're going to fall asleep or something. You know, it's you can only carry extreme emotions for a certain length of time, and excitement is an extreme emotion. It's a deviation from what's your normal feeling, really. So that's has
Yeah. There is definitely an element of people sort of seeking thrills instead of sticking to the plan, sort of chasing the excitement. And you're absolutely right. It basically it means, you know, people end up swinging. All right, they have, you know, swinging between boredom and adrenaline. And that just basically tends to put people on an emotional roller coaster, and that actually makes the whole situation even worse because, you know, then they tend to get into a habit of trading the P&L. You know, when the profits up, they're up. When the losses are in, they're down. You know, and that's just no way to either live your life or trade markets when you're on that emotional roller coaster, etc. And it's just you know, it's like self-perpetuate in terms of just the kind of almost like the swings get bigger and wider, etc. And it's just that's just not a fun place for anybody to be. And then it starts to have knock-on impacts on people's general self-worth, their self-belief, their self-confidence, etc. And it just can lead into a bit of a deathward spiral. You know, and I've seen it plenty of times with people who've got into that place, etc. And it's it's not a good place to be and such. And so yeah, even almost just, you know, finding yourself thinking you're a bit bored or you need a bit of excitement, etc. As I said, just go and find it elsewhere. All right, go and do something else. I think maybe a strength of mine is the ability to recognize that I do have that within me. That kind of need for a little bit of adventure, that need for a little bit of excitement. But the market is not the place to come and find that, right? You find that in other areas of your life and such. So, for me, I used to love doing the like Pamplona bull run. That's kind of my joy, favorite sport. All right, okay, love that. Did like dives with like great white sharks and stuff, basically sort of tracking leopards, etc. in Africa and all that sort of stuff. All that kind of stuff is great. I love it. I love it. I love it. Anything that terrifies me and forces me to confront my fears, I love it. But equally, that's great. Go and do that elsewhere. The market, if you don't know who you are, the market is an awful place to find that out about yourself. And unfortunately, I would suggest for most young men, it is where they find out about themselves. And it can be, for many of them, it can be a very deeply emotionally and financially painful experience. Whereas actually realizing that there is a time to be trader Paul, and then there is a time to be, other Paul, all right, okay, business Paul, sort of, friend Paul, life Paul, okay, adventurous Paul, etc., and recognize that, and almost be able to sort of, in a way, compartmentalize those kind of sections of your own personality.
Mm.
How about yourself? What do you do for excitement, Ian? Apart from watching YouTube clips on Genghis Khan and teaching you a song,
Well,
inappropriate marching songs.
yeah. I do a lot of shooting, actually. That's not game shooting. Yeah, not game shooting so much. I don't know. I don't need that much of excitement in my life, to be quite honest, as a person in general. I mean, I grew up on a beef farm. I've been chased by bulls as part of my childhood. I don't really don't need to do that, because I nearly got killed by one once. It was going off to the factory to be turned into burgers, and I was only about 9 years old, and it just went bananas, and it came after me, and I don't know how I did it, but I jumped into a big high steel trailer, and it just whacked off the trailer like Jaws off the side of that boat in the film Jaws, and frightened the living daylights out of me. So I don't know. I don't think I need a huge amount of excitement. It's a glass of wine on a sunny evening is really about as exciting as I'd like to get most of the time. And I think it's just a difference, because I think I tend to be quite internalizing as a person. Like, I'm an introvert, and so I tend to do a lot of, inside my head is much more exciting generally than what's going on outside in the world.
Don't we know it, Ian? Don't we know it?
Yeah. So what was I going to say? That one of the things I always think as well is a lot of people go into trading because they want to be special.
Yeah.
And I think that's
there's a lot of people in trading who are special, and not for good reasons.
No, that's very true. To that answer to, because it's one of those things, and you have to, at some level, want to think that you're special to go into trading, because it's 1% of people that really make it in trading. There's anybody 1% of people, and that's about it. I know that they say what this 10%, or you go and you look on the IG index from on the landing page, and it's at 72% of people who are profitable, but that's in that quarter or that month, and that's basically, and it doesn't say how profitable. So Billy goes in and he does, because they force you to do one trade every month or something. I don't know what it is. So you could have gone in and made 26 cents, and you're still part of that 72% profitable. So it's not really. So I think people want to feel special. And the problem with that is that once they get the kick in the teeth, and they realize that they're not special, they're only special if they put in an awful lot of work, there's a huge big amount of shame that then comes. Because you have discovered something that's not particularly wonderful about yourself. You are not a special little boy. You're just a person who hasn't done enough work. And I think that's one of the problems with that whole trading thing.
I was going to say, shall we sort of move on to maybe taking a look at, actually, what makes for like a healthy mindset? What is it that is actually a good way to deal with kind of boredom and excitement, etc.? What do we do to help ourselves?
Well, basically, what does it feel like for a start? What are you actually trying to achieve? And video games are probably the easy for my type of trading. right? I could only talk about my particular type of trading from my own experience. Um, Video games are probably the closest thing. So you have this idea of the flow state or trading in the zone, being in the zone. And everybody who's played a video game for any length of time, like a shooting video game, has been in the zone, because it's challenging, but it's winnable. It's exciting. It's non-threatening to you. I mean, the worst thing that can happen to you in a video game is you get shot by whoever, and then you just press the restart button, and and it's enjoyable. You're immersed. You're enjoying it, and that's the flow state. And when the market is working in my particular way of doing it, so it's being nice and compliant, and it's obeying all things, and it's just that's what it feels like. It feels like playing a video game, except you get paid for doing it instead of wasting your life. So it's because I had a video game, I had a Call of Duty. I bought it years ago, and it still was on disc, and I just started playing it all the time. And then eventually I got tired of it, and I just, this is a waste of my life, because I spent 2 hours in the evening playing this bloody video game. So I left it in my parents' house. And a couple of years later, I saw it and thought, all right, I'll have another go at that. And then got lost in Call of Duty for a month, and then just chucked it in the bin because, it's, and consequently, it's the one thing my son doesn't have as a video game. We don't own a TV anyway, but he doesn't get to do any video games because it's just, but it's a lovely way of representing what the flow state feels like. Because when you lose money, especially in my particular way of losing, in my particular type of trading, when you lose money, it should be no more threatening than losing your life in a video game. Because you have a maximum loss, you have a maximum. It's not a threat to you. It's not going to. You go in, you lose a couple of $100. That's part of the game. That's the same thing as getting shot in a video game, and that's what it should feel like. It is easier with a video game to enter the flow than it is with trading, because trading still does have that sort of existential threat. And it is a job, and you do have to do it every day. So it's not like you finish work for the day and now you're going to do something pleasurable by playing Call of Duty. It's you're here at 8:05 in the morning, and you're trying to do a job. So it is easier to enter the flow. Playing a video game. You can only enter the flow for so long. Eventually, like everything else, you get tired and fall out of it. What I used to do, not so much now, but I used to do when I was having strugglings, I used to use music a lot. So Perlughesi's Stabat Mater is 42 minutes long. I can concentrate for 42 minutes. That's basically it. After 42 minutes, when it's busy at work, that you actually have to be there for the 42 minutes and concentrating, that's my maximum length of time. So if I started to find my mind wandering, or I was in some way, my performance wasn't great, I put on exactly the same tune. It's 42 minutes long. It's quite calming. And that would be my sort of anchor to know, right, for the next one, this music, when you hear this music, you have to operate in this way. You have to operate in a proper way that you know what to do, basically. I think it is the most pleasurable thing in the world to be in when you're in the flow. You're pretty unbeatable, really, when you're in the flow. When you're in the flow, you can, it's like picking trades out of the air, you just, because you're so connected to the market, you're so connected to what you're doing, you're so involved in everything. That it's lovely. It really is the nicest part of trading, is being in the flow state. It's nicer than the money. It's nicer than anything else, but you get 2 hours of that bliss of just being in the flow state. It's magical. Changing position size, the first thing to go is the flow. So if you go up in position size, you're entering an emotion. You're putting an emotion in on top of you. So you're putting in whatever it is, because if your position size changes, Um, even if it's only for a couple of trades, you are going to feel different, and you're going to find it harder to enter the zone, basically. And if you can't enter that zone, you just stick to what I just do is I have a couple of setups that are technical setups that you can write them out. They're really easy. I don't have to have any intuition about them. I don't have to, they're simple. And that's what I would basically stick to if I'm having a hard time, because I talk about this quite a lot with the other pro traders I work with. You have days you just can't do it. You just can't focus. You're sitting there, you want to be someplace else, you want to be doing something else. And in an ordinary job, that's no problem, because when I worked in an office, you struggled your way through the day, and then you went back the next day and you got your wages anyway. Or else you found something else to do, because in most other jobs, if you're running a bakery, for instance, and you can't enter the flow state for working while you're working in a bakery, there's always some sort of administration you can do, tidy up. There's a lot of other jobs, but in trading, the job is trading. There isn't really much else, because there's only research and trading. That's basically your two functions. And that is a problem with if you can't enter a flow state, or you can't focus. It's not much you can do. So after a while, as a professional trader, you know it. You say it out loud. It's a common thing. As I was saying before, I work in a telegram room with other professional traders, and I just can't focus today. And they're all like, "Oh yeah, I know what that's like." And that's that. The last thing I was going to say about it as well is that I find an awful lot of trading psychology books are too narrow in their focus, because when you are building a trader, or you're trying to mentor a trader, you're trying to mentor an entire person, not just this one little part of their job. And everybody has a feeling, everybody has emotions around money, for instance. Everybody has a relationship to money. And if you don't believe me, take out a £5 note and set fire to it and watch it burn, and you will see very quickly how you relate to money. I think that's illegal actually in some countries, but anyway, do it secretly maybe. So you have to look at the whole person, you have to look at their whole lifestyle as well, whether they might be having in the middle of a divorce or something like that. There's a lot of problems that can happen. Then I've only just some small, a lot of points put in. Self-discipline for getting into the zone. You can help yourself by having a routine that gets you to there. So you start off with your list in the morning, and you do the same sort of actions that help you get into the mindset that gets you into the zone. It's not self-discipline, I would say, and because I'm not a big believer in self-discipline, because I think when you're in the zone of trading and when you're in that flow state, you're not using discipline. You don't need discipline because you're perfect already. You're eventually the super little boy that Mammy always told you were going to be. Yeah, that's pretty much it, really.
Right. Yeah, grand stretch in the evening. That the thing I would say on flow is that another thing is that as soon as you recognise you're in flow, you come out of flow. That's the thing, and I've experienced that on trading floors. I've experienced that on the sports field. I've experienced controlling aircraft. I've experienced in other workday jobs. As soon as you get that realization of wow, well, I'm in. This has been a great session. I'm in flow here. As soon as you recognize it, you come out of it. And actually, part of the skill you develop is about what can you do to basically you back into flow. You can't choose to be in flow. God, I wish you could. But as you said, a lot of that comes down to if you start to put that into what you need to do to help yourself manage boredom, excitement, etc. Is it's pretty. It might sound like we're repeating myself, but it is an element of basically focusing on the process. All right, not the thrills. Focusing on the checklist, because it's actually going through that list. That's what starts to get your brain into the kind of it gets you focused. Okay, get you engaged on what you're about to. The endeavor you're about to work on, and that is what gives you the opportunity to get into flow, or what Douglas called the now moment opportunity flow. Okay, but it's by following that kind of consistent process, ding, 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 and being able to sort of find fulfillment in the discipline of following that process. I would agree with you. Self-discipline is a mercurial resource. Okay, you don't always have access to it. It can be brittle, but finding fulfillment in the discipline of following your process is the sort of thing that helps start to get you focused and stops you being distracted. Stops you being distracted. Focus on the process, not on the thrills. And another thing I'll be saying is about looking at redefining boredom as patience, right? Trying to work on redefining boredom as patience, recognizing that your job is to find quality setups, all right, that is basically is part of your edge, and then deploy those edges as and when they work on it. And so it's not boredom, it's patience, all right. And trading is a job that pays patience, all right. It pays for you to be patient and stuff. So part of that is about things like sometimes like setting clear trading hours for yourself in terms of looking at, well, what can actually people take from this and do. Setting clear trading hours, all right. Give yourself, right, bang, you were talking about 42 minutes, etc. You can just say, right, I've got 2 hours in this morning session, that's it. That's it. You just basically have a very clear boundary, clear out, you follow your process through it, okay, and just basically once it's finished, you get up and go and do something else. All right, go and do something else. All right, you need to refresh, you need to renew, you need to recharge. Maybe you come back later that day, maybe you don't, depending upon your circumstances. But within that, set those trading hours. Have a like a productive routine. All right, something that you can follow that basically you're doing so that you are making productive use of that time, but also, as I said earlier, you are doing what's necessary to give yourself the best chance to get into a state of flow. And for those of you who may be a little bit more experienced, what you could look at also is things like anchoring. All right, anchoring emotions with rules. All right, anchoring positive emotions with rules. Okay, utilizing it as an opportunity to build good habits in with yourself. It doesn't happen overnight. You will make plenty of errors and mistakes. You will break it, but actually just using it as an opportunity to build and enhance and strengthen good habits is one of the ways that you can be productive in what you're doing, and it has a long-term beneficial effect for you in terms of helping you kind of manage boredom, manage excitement, and also manage your mindset. You can't manage the market, but you can manage your mindset, and you can manage how you choose to interpret data and how you choose to act. The market will do its thing, but you can it's one of those things that you can control, that you should be focusing on there and then and stuff. So you say that makes sense?
Yeah, the one thing I'd say about the flow state, that you were saying that once you realize that you were in it, you fell out of it. That doesn't happen to me, believe it or not. So I really quite know sometimes that I'm in the flow state, and then I sort of kick back and enjoy it. And that's basically so that's something it's just a difference, I suppose. I think as well, it's also because I communicate quite a lot with other traders while I'm actually trading, who are trading the same instruments with the same tools in the same time frame. And so you're almost competitive a little bit. You want to get the better trades. And so you're communicating out, and then you'd realize that you're doing something a little bit better or a little bit special in that particular moment. I know myself when I used to work in a wine shop years ago, and I had to turn into a sort of a salesman. What I used to do an awful lot of the time was when somebody come in the door and I knew I had to start that's an excellent choice in wine, sir. Bit. I just used to clap my hands, and it was signal. There are lots of things that you use to signal yourself that's as with NLP anchoring, that you can use to. And I'd suggest to anybody to go out and read a book on neurolinguistic programming, or just watch a couple of DVDs, or Dr. Joe Dispenza is really good with it as well. I like that stuff. Um, and I used to find that really quite a handy, quite a good way of signaling myself that I was in this I had to change states. Um, Also, I remember as well, just with the shorter hours. I remember my wife when she was doing her PhD. She had a coach when she was doing her PhD, and they suggested doing shorter hours, and it's absolutely true. An awful lot of professional traders I know don't work much more than 2 hours a day. Not in reality. Not in reality. They might be there for 2 hours a day or for more hours a day, but they don't work that much because because more time is not better time. So they work really intently around the open, around the news event. And the market is structured for that. It's structured, you have that 8 to 10 in the morning time when the London Open, you have the market moves, then you have this big dull bit in the middle where there's nothing to do often. Then it wakes up again around 1:30, and then then you have the cash open at 2:30, and then you have the doldrums in around 4, and then it dies again until basically 7 o'clock in the evening. So it's designed for that. It's designed around the human ability to concentrate for only a certain period of time. And again, it's not a time money exchange. You're paid for the risk. And if you sit there and take risk for an hour and a half or 90 minutes, and that risk pays off, then you have done your job. If you sit there and don't do that, and spend 10 hours, you're not going to get paid for that. You're paid for the risk. You're not paid for the time. If we'd all got out and bought Bitcoin 20 years ago or 10 years ago, whatever, bought $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, we would have worked for 20 minutes and be all multimillionaires now,
Very true.
So that's what it is. It's not a time money exchange, basically.
Fair enough. All right, listen, mate. Let's draw this to a close, okay? I appreciate you're enjoying the conversation and such, but yeah, let's draw it to a close for everybody here. So, just quick reminder that next week, TOGS 49. When to go big? Should you ever go all in on a trade? All right. So hopefully you'll join us for that. Listen. Great trading is rarely about excitement, okay? And the best traders, they find peace in patience, in discipline, in routine, and satisfaction in consistency. The market doesn't reward thrill seekers in the long time. Okay, it rewards those who can stay calm and focused and deliver with consistency. So take that away. I hope that you found the session useful. As always, what I'll try and do is I'll try and put together a couple of little bit of follow up pieces of detail to just try and shape this into some bullet points you can take away. So certainly for those people in my group and stuff, they'll get access to that, and also I think I put it on my kind of school page as well, so you can access that. You can access that for everybody, and because I appreciate that sometimes it's good to listen to it, but sometimes actually you want something written down in front of you that you can basically refer to and help you with that. Listen, as always, thanks very much, everybody, for listening and for joining us. I hope you'll join us for next week's for TOGS 49. Thanks very much, Ian. All right. I hope you have another good week of watching more YouTube clips and teaching your son inappropriate songs to sing. Listen, everybody, have a great week. Trade well, and we'll all speak to you soon. Take care, everybody. Cheers.